This episode is sponsored by Greg Farms. Join us on June 8th at 11 a.m. in Turner, Maine for the Built to Last at Greg Farms auction. Beginning on Friday, June 7th, we'll kick things off with a social hour, cattle viewing, and youth seminars on nutrition, animal health, and hoof care, supported by some of our generous donors like Caftel, Farm Credit East, Fibro. This will also include a memorabilia auction to benefit the Klusendorf Scholarship Fund at 7 p.m. Saturday, June 8th, the sale will start at 11 a.m. sharp. Either join us in person and enjoy the beautiful Maine weather and scenery, or join us online at cowbuyer.com. Follow us on Facebook at Built to Last at Greg Farms for more information, pictures, and pertinent details as we get closer. Welcome to episode 4 of the New England Holstein Podcast, and I'm your host, Betsy Bullard of Greg Farms in Turner, Maine. I'm also the Area 1 Director for Holstein USA. Our goals with the New England Holstein Association Podcast are to further that member association goals around encouraging the breeding and raising of registered Holsteins. We hope that this podcast provides resources towards those ends and increases member connectedness. This episode is sponsored by Greg Farms, and future episodes will offer additional sponsorship opportunities for both our breeders and some of our regional agribusinesses that have been terrific supporters of the association and of our breeders as well. Definitely want to celebrate the rich history of the association. It was formed, I guess is the right word, in 1921. This episode today, it kind of segues from our last one. If you caught episode 3, we talked a lot about our junior programs and kind of that whole youth process, and had our leader of that process, Nicole Schwab, on the pod, and she talked a lot about both her experience and some of the really cool activities that we have going on with our programs. And Greg is a not so distant junior member who is now doing the adulting thing, and Greg's agreed to come on today and talk to us both about his junior experience and kind of what that's meant in framing some of his other experiences and where he is today and some of the roles that he's taking on in the association as well. So just from a historical standpoint, at its formation in 1921, the association clearly signaled its commitment to youth by voting a cash appropriation for a calf club work at Eastern States, and that was quickly followed by a series of New England youth doing fantastic things out in the world, being recognized with that highest honor that our Holstein Association bestows upon junior members, the National Distinguished Junior Holstein members, semifinalists and finalists. And when I read down through my impressively long list of folks that have been recognized from New England, when we get to 2021, we see Greg's name. So as always, congratulations for great work on that. And Greg, if you want to take us on a little walk through your junior experience and kind of go from there.
Well, thanks for having me on today. I always am really appreciative to everything that New England Holstein Association especially has done for me coming up through my junior career. I got a little bit of a late start with it. I kind of started out in 4-H when I was about 8 or 9 years old, and just started out just showing a little bit. And then as it got time, when I got to the age that we could go to Eastern States, that's when I started branching out a little more into things like judging and Quiz Bowl. And Quiz Bowl was something that I kind of really fell in love with right away, and got the opportunity to do that on the Massachusetts team, competing at the Big E contest. And that's something Nicole Fletcher, now Nicole Schwab, was our coach for that for Massachusetts 4-H. So she's the one that really kind of brought me along into the fold on Holstein things. I think 2014 in the fall in Vermont was my first New England Holstein convention that I went to. So that was a really cool experience to be able to qualify for the junior team to go to national convention last year. But I think even just that first New England Holstein convention that I went to was a really great experience for me. When they had that convention in Vermont, they did a little bus trip up to Quebec. So that was one of the real first experiences that I had, being able to not only see the Holstein breed, but just some farms outside of New England, being able to go up there and visiting a farm like Lookout Farm, being able to see that kind of quality of cows was something that really kind of started opening my eyes to everything that the Holstein breed has to offer, and really help to ignite my passion with it. So, and just kind of continuing along with that as we go through the year, that first year that I was involved, just going to quiz bowl practices and everything. It's something that I really credit for me now, even having a career in the agriculture industry, is just really being involved in those programs, making connections with other youth and adults from all around New England. That first year at the National Holstein Convention, that 2015 in Illinois, was really something that I think that's really when I was probably going into my sophomore year in high school at that point, kind of starting to think about what did I want to do in college and the rest of my life at that point. Up until then, I don't know if I would have said I wanted to continue on with a career in agriculture, but being able to have the opportunity to go to the National Holstein Convention, see that other part of the country, is something that really kind of cemented the fact that, okay, there's definitely a lot that the dairy industry and agricultural industry and Holsteins in general have to offer out of there. And it's something that I really want to be a part of. So I think just to start out, that was a huge formation moment for me, was being able to see kind of all the opportunities that are available, not just in New England, but throughout the country. And that first year being involved with the New England Holstein Association on a junior level, really important for me, just figuring out that I do have a really strong passion for agriculture.
That's great, Greg. Thanks for describing some of your junior journey. And I think that's a great point, that you feel like they were a little bit later starting then, but certainly made the most of those opportunities.
Yes. So that first year I was on the junior dairy bowl team. And then the next year in New York, I did Jeopardy. That was definitely, I really love the Jeopardy side of things. As much as I love the team aspect of Quiz Bowl too, it's kind of cool to just being out there on my own in Jeopardy, and it's kind of like you're completely in control of things. So it's all you, and if you don't do well with it, you know that you just need to go and study more. So I really like that side of it, just being able to really hold myself to it, and okay, I want to go out and do the best that I can in this, and just make sure I could study as hard as I could to prepare for it.
Absolutely. And the Jeopardy experience turned out adequately well, I would say. You had some success in those contests.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to win it in New York. So that was intermediate contest, I think. So that was definitely a really cool moment. And I think it's really cool just being a part of something where I think you have that whole group of New England kids around there too. So it's kind of like just how, and we'll get to kind of the DJM side of it, but it was kind of just like it was for me with DJM. My sister was the first one in a while from New England to be a finalist a few years before me. So kind of being around there and seeing her go through the process kind of is like, okay, I can do this too. Having the rest of the team and some of the younger juniors around too, it's like, hey, we can all do this and compete really well on the national level. And that 2016 in general, I think the junior quiz bowl team was third place in overall too in that contest. So I think that was a really cool year for us. Just in the time that I had been involved with the association, you can kind of see, okay, hey, we're doing really well on the national level. And it really helped to, I think, motivate all of us involved to just go and prepare even harder and study even more to really try to represent New England the best we can.
We're back to those connections again, and that sense of connectedness that, we're hoping that podcast helps out with, and helps out with some of these stories, whether it's a younger junior that listens to Nicole's story last time and kind of what's going on with the junior programs, and some of your tales that you're recounting as well. And I think this is a sure sign of adulting, that you on your own brought up a sibling and their efforts as well. A pretty fantastic aspect of our programs. We do have lots of siblings, and while that I think probably keeps Nicole's life relatively interesting in many practice and travel situations, but it's definitely makes that whole web of connectedness even more significant. Take me to 2021. You were recognized as a distinguished junior. At that point, you were in college and maybe had solidified a few more, or if anything's, I don't want to say solidified, thinking back to college, it was more of a sense of what there were for possibilities out there?
Yeah, that was something. So that was after my junior year of college, I believe. That was the 21 Holstein Convention where I went into that as a DJM semifinalist. And definitely at that point, I kind of had a really good idea of what I wanted to do for a career. I was in the midst of my second summer internship, which was with the same company that I work for now. So that was something that was interesting. Was it was a little bit of a pivot for me from really going into college thinking, okay, I know I want a job in the dairy industry, and I was really focused in on genetics on it too. And then I kind of fell into a summer internship with a agricultural retailer company that sells fertilizers and pesticides for crops. So it was something completely different for me, but it definitely just turned into something that I really enjoyed and really had a passion for, and was able to still work with dairies on top of it too. So that was something where going into the process of applying for DJM, becoming a semifinalist, when you're working on your book and kind of your story and talking about your career goals and how you want to be able to impact the industry through your career. It was something where I knew I probably wasn't going to have a career that was specifically in the dairy industry at that point, but I was still going to be in the agriculture industry and around Holsteins and other dairies. I was able to really kind of go into that with a solid mindset of, okay, this is who I am. This is how Holstein has really helped to impact my career, but really having a clear defined plan of what I wanted to do with my life. I think that was really helpful for me going through the DJM process, just with making my DJM book. And then also once we got to National Holstein Convention and having that interview process as well. So I was really able to be confident in what I wanted my career to look like and how Holsteins were still going to be involved in that whole career.
Tell us about your work.
So I currently work as a product manager for Helena Agri Enterprises. So we're one of the larger ag retailer companies in the country. In my current role, I actually work with all of our proprietary products. So whether it's a liquid fertilizer product, some of our spray adjuvants, we even have some pesticide products or some foliar fertilizers. I get to work directly with that portfolio of products. And I actually have a really fun role right now where I'm not necessarily working directly with customers and farmers on a regular basis selling the products. But I work with all of our retail locations across the Northeast. So 5 locations that I cover in New York, New England, and New Jersey. I'm really lucky that I get to travel around and see a lot of different farms, anything from a dairy farm to large row crop farms. And even we have a lot of specialty fruit and vegetable crops that are grown throughout my territory as well. So that's something that I'm really able to quite a good range of how agriculture is working in this area, and something where I still get to enjoy working with a lot of dairies as well all throughout the region.
So given that we're recording this podcast on May 23rd, I would venture a guess that this is a little bit of a busy time for somebody in your role and your customers in turn.
Definitely something where I spend a lot of my winter actually going out quite a bit, whether it's talking at grower meetings with a group of growers or even just going around with our sales reps and meeting with farmers that way. So for me personally, this can be a little bit of a slower time because it's something where more of the sales reps get to run around and help meet all the needs of all of our farmers out there that are trying to get their corn and soybeans or any other crop in the ground. Right now, a lot of the work that I'm focusing on is getting a lot of different trial plots out right now. So I'm actually out in central New York right now in the Finger Lakes, getting to look at some of the corn that's been planted, see where we've gotten some different trials out, looking at different combinations of starter fertilizers. So that'll be something that I'm really looking forward to following through with throughout the summer. Big part of what I do in my role is just looking at, okay, how are these products actually working out in the field? And it's something that's the biggest thing that I wanted with my career too, is just being able to provide solutions to farmers, figure out what's going to work best on their farm, and ultimately what's going to bring them the most ROI, be the best for their farming operation. And then in the case of working with dairy farms too, that can be a really fun part for me because I was still an animal science major in college. So not only am I worried about the crop, but also kind of bringing it around full circle and how is this actually what we're doing out in the field impacting our forage quality on the farm, and how can that lead to more milk production or healthier cows or anything that comes along with that. It's probably my favorite part of the job, is especially when I get to work with a dairy specifically to really help them improve that feed quality.
So it sounds to me, Greg, like there's a pretty significant communication component of both your junior association activities and now what you do for your day job. That's
Not only was I able to kind of get that experience with Quiz Bowl and Jeopardy, which there is almost a bit of a public speaking aspect out of it where you're not necessarily going and giving a big presentation on something, but you have to be able to buzz in front of a whole room of people and be able to kind of confidently state your answer out. Between those activities and then just like an interview process that you get out of DJM, and then I was also able to do some prepared public speaking as well at Holstein Convention. And I think all of that has really boded well for me in my career, just because I'm not going to claim to be the best public speaker in the world yet. Something I think everyone who public speaks a lot always is working on improving their skills with that. But a huge part of my job now is just getting up and doing some public speaking. So whether I'm talking to a grower or even just at a meeting and have to give a full PowerPoint presentation on something, it's definitely something that I credit a lot of my skills just when it comes to public speaking and even just having conversations with people, other farmers, other people in the industry. All of those junior activities I did through the Holstein Association really played a huge part in my development of that.
so, Greg, I normally ask our guests and everybody that's been generously willing to share their time in this podcast a couple questions. Is there a particular cow in your Holstein experience that was meaningful, both in like experiences that you had with her, whether it was breeding or showing or just for any reason?
I think I almost have two answers for it. I think one's kind of a cliche answer in saying apple. And I think part of that, how it personally connects to me too, is I think when I really started to get involved on the showing side and get like interested in following show results, I think that was a couple years after she was really successful in the ring and had her kind of heyday there. But it was still kind of right at that time that I got involved that you really saw the influence of her and her daughters in the show ring. Even now, kind of 10 years after that, or more, a little more now, the apple genetics play such a huge part just in the breeding that I'm doing every day on my own farm. So I do have quite a bit of red and whites at home. Every cow in the herd there has some cross of apple in there. So I think it's cool just to see how big of an influence she's had on the breed at this point, just through her sons and daughters. Another kind of personal cow story, one really cool one for me was Love Hill Goldwyn Patricia. And that was kind of the first year that I went to World Dairy Expo was in 2016. And that's when I went out there as part of the National 4-H Dairy Conference. So being able to have that day where you go and see the whole expo grounds, and that was the year after she won Supreme Champion, I believe. That was the first time I kind of walked through the milk source string there and being able to see her. It's like, that was one of the first times it's like, oh, I'm kind of starstruck seeing this cow here right now. So that was kind of one of those first moments of my first time at World Dairy Expo and seeing that cow that won Supreme Champion the year before. So that's kind of a really cool memory for me too.
Great stories, and again, great stories that tie together some of those experiences that you've had. Go along with her, have a huge impact on our lives as we get going on some of these projects. As you're surveying your test plot areas there and some of the other work that's going on this spring, any nuggets of wisdom your customers and their farmers have had for you this crop season?
Being patient with things, which I think as farmers, and I deal with it myself at home too, where a lot of times you just want to get the crop in the ground, but making sure conditions are right can be everything when you're planting corn. So I know that's something, especially out here in New York, that they've struggled with, is just getting so much rain. But I think other than that, just in the dairy industry in general, I think money is always tight, but you also have to focus on growing the crop the right way too. So making sure that we're getting the right fertilizer out there, controlling all the weeds we need to. It might be a little more of an expense, but it can oftentimes pay off a lot more in the long term, just with the overall health of your cows, having some really great quality feed for them. So I think that's one thing, especially being able to work with some pretty large farms out in New York. You see the effort they put into raising their crop, and it's not just because they want to have a nice crop out of it, but really keeping the cow in mind and having that awesome quality feed to be able to provide to your herd.
I appreciate that very much, and we'll look forward to upcoming podcasts with some other fun topics like on-farm marketing, and we'll have some convention recaps coming up, and we're always open to more ideas on topics that people would be interested in hearing more about, or members that we ought to connect with in this format. Adventurous souls that are interested in being on the air. I definitely want to remind folks of some of the upcoming events here in New England, and when this airs will be almost June, which is shocking to me that the year would, but here we are. We'll have some June events, the main event tag sale in Gray, Maine. That's June 6th and 7th with Juniper and Allendale. Built to Last at Breguin sale on June 8th in Turner, Maine. That's Breguin with assistance from Borderview and Crackholm. The National Holstein Convention is in beautiful Salt Lake City, June 24th to 27th. And we start to get into some of our state show season with June 30th. We have the Connecticut and Rhode Island state show. Make sure to check out the New England Association at nesholsteins.com, both for those current events and for this podcast episode, as well as our previous episodes. Thanks again, Greg, for joining us on the episode today, and enjoy your spring planting adventures.
Yes, will do. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.